Remember what we learned about Ben and Jerry's ice cream?
Right. Yep.
I'm going to say something that's technically accurate. Don't write hate mail. Ben and Jerry's ice cream speeds your metabolism.
Whoa.
Shocking, right?
So many people will be happy about that.
Yeah, so many people will be happy about that. The experts are going to say, what is this guy crazy? No, but technically speaking, the increase in energy, your body will respond. Now, you're going to gain body fat. You're going to feel lethargic. It's going to hurt your performance. You're not going to like what you see on the scale. But technically speaking, your metabolic rate will be increased.
This is the Tom Rowland Podcast. Fascinating stories to amaze, encourage, and inspire you in fishing, fitness, and the outdoors. And we're brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I started this podcast as a way to connect with my friends, people that I admire and respect, and you. It has been a learning journey that's made me a better person, a better fisherman, a better father, and a better athlete. I'm so happy that you're on this journey with me, and I'd love to hear from you with show suggestions, guest suggestions, or questions. The best way to get a hold of me is through text. You can text 305-930-7346 for the fastest response, but if you prefer to email, you can send that to podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. That's a dedicated email address just for the show. If you like this show, you can show your support by posting about it on social media and tagging me. Text the link to a couple of friends that may also enjoy it, and subscribe and leave a 5-star review if you feel like I've earned it. The website is tomrowlandpodcast.com, and that is where everything lives. All past shows, you can go and listen to any show. You can look up all the different shows that we've done, both the How To Tuesdays, the full links, and the Physical Fridays. They all live on tomrowlandpodcast.com. And the social media is Tom_Rowland, ROWLAND, on Instagram, or you can go to our big account, Saltwater_Experience. I hope to hear from you soon. So now, let's get on to today's show.
This is Angelo Poli, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Angelo, how are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me on, Tom.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. We have a mutual friend in Rob Orlando, and
Yes.
I'm really excited to hear about what you did with Rob. But of course, you know, your marquee client is Aaron Rodgers. That's what a lot of people will know about. But tell me what MetPro is and what you do there before we get into specifically what you've done for those athletes.
I'm still trying to figure that out, Tom. We're a bunch of nerds. You've probably heard of, you know, the kind of the think tank when it comes to you're into CrossFit. Mm-hmm. So the CrossFit training and programming and all that. So kind of we're like that on the nutrition side. We do programming and nutrition, but our specialty is really metabolism. And it's interesting, almost ironic. You know, today, fast forward almost a decade since this whole idea of metabolic profiling started. And, you know, 85% of our clients come to us because they have stubborn weight they want to lose. But when it started, it was really for the high-end athletes like the Aarons, the Robs, and so many others, mm-hmm. who are basically already performing at a high level, but they want the technically most accurate next steps to enhance that through nutritional recovery. And there's a lot of science and a lot of nerdy stuff that I'd love to share with you that goes into that.
I'm all into it.
That's who we are at MetPro.
Well, that's cool. I spend most of my free time when I'm not thinking about fishing. This is kind of a fishing podcast, so you have a lot of people that are into outdoors and fishing and things like that. But there's a lot of people that, you know, that's the number one thing. That's their New Year's resolution. That's their goal, is to lose weight, to get back in shape. We talk about it all the time here. But what I do in my spare time is I read books and study and try to figure out on my own. I'm 54 and a competitive CrossFit athlete, and this has been a lifelong journey. I was a wrestler when I was in grammar school all the way through high school. So there was all the cutting weight and everything, and it did teach me some things about food and things like that. And then I found the Zone diet, which taught me a lot about, you know, your protein and carbohydrates and fat. But it's been a lifelong learning process, and I feel like I get a little bit better every year. But it sounds like you really have this really dialed in. So I'm about the nerdy stuff. I like to know exactly what you're doing, and everybody out there is wondering if there is a secret to being able to get rid of stubborn weight, right? Like that's what almost everybody's, even if you're a high level athlete, it's like, I still have this extra 10 pounds that I would really like to get off, but it just doesn't want to go anywhere. So that's where you are, right? So how did it
Solutions can be had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's hear what you got.
So it's interesting. So you just brought in, ask me anything, and it's great, because if you ask me something I don't know the answer to, I'll say, perfect, I don't know the answer. but I'll share with you the limited knowledge that I do have. This is my passion. This is what I've been pursuing, and I consider myself a perpetual learner as well. So Barry Sears, see, that's really interesting. Now I knew Rob Wolf. In fact, ironically,
he's been on the show too.
Oh, he's
Rob Wolf's awesome, man. I had him on for hydration. We talked about his new product Element, and I'm a big believer in that. And then a lot of people, what we do here is we fish in very, very hot environments. So hydration is a really, really important thing as far as just day to day. You're out there in the Florida Keys. It's super hot all day long, and that's a very, very important thing. But Rob was a great guest. We had him on, and Barry Sears, that's I'm interested to know what what your history with him or what you know about his work is.
So Rob, ironically, his studio, this is eons ago, right? His studio was right behind where mine was in Chico, California.
Okay.
Great guy. We had some really great conversations. Very friendly. He was so kind to my wife and I. Anyhow, we had some great conversations, and I remember before paleo, he would have really engaging conversations with me on Barry Sears, the zone diet. And so it's interesting. So I'm the numbers guy. So what I like to do is I'll look at stats, and I am fortunate now because in my career, never before have I had so much data, quality data available to look back at different athletes and demographics that have gone through our program who are highly engaged. When they're investing in a program like mine, typically you have a very, very engaged and adherent clientele, and really pull some interesting stats. So here's one that'll make you chuckle. What I have determined is Barry Sears, the zone ratio. If I were to pool the data, and I did this a few years ago, and look at, with nuance changes and adjustments, where do most high-level athletes land? The ratio that most commonly came up was close to the 40, 30, 30, closer than any other ratio. It was like 29,
Now, is that what they're currently eating?
40.
Or
just a snapshot of what they're currently intaking.
Right.
And it turned out that 9% of our demographic, our clientele, was within, a margin of 8-9% of that number. It occurred 9% of the time. So here's my tongue-in-cheek joke. That means that Barry Sears was a genius, even though he was wrong 91% of the time.
Yeah.
So here's what it all revolves around, because I get asked this a lot. Well, okay, what does that mean for me? It all comes down to baseline testing, and that's an element that, as athletes and CrossFitters, we understand that concept, but we forget to apply it to nutrition. So what's your favorite named WOD, Tom?
Well, I like the hero workout, so let's just say Murph.
Hero workout?
Let's just say Murph is my favorite.
Okay. So what ballpark? What was your last time on Murph?
I can look. We do it several different ways. Maybe that one's not the best way to do it because you got the partitioned and the non-partitioned and the way. Maybe one day you're wearing a vest and one day you're not.
Sure.
Let me see if I can pull it up here. I'll get some of my stuff. Let's go with maybe like a Helen or something like that.
Okay.
Which is a little more easier to Or we can look at this. I just have to sign into this account here.
Sure. Yeah. And we'll just use this as an example, because when you can wrap your head around it with something you're familiar with, then the concept really starts to take shape in your mind and you can apply it. So
Right.
I'm big on making sure we leave listeners with at least something to walk away with and to apply. But while you're looking for that, the moral of the story is, if you have, for example, I'll just take, a Fran. I worked with an athlete who was particularly fast at Fran. In fact, he did a 2:09.
Wow, that's very fast.
Very fast, yeah. That's one of the top guys for that one. And in order to improve it, what would you need to know?
In order to improve on a 209?
Yeah, we're going to improve any time with any WOD. What do you have to know? You would have to know what your previous WOD is.
Exactly.
Right. You have to have a baseline to
Okay.
know what you're. So now when you have a baseline, what you can do is you can measure, okay, so I did, and this is why I love CrossFit, because what it does is it provides every session acts as a baseline training protocol that you can compare yourself against to see how is my approach stacking up. We do that constantly for our training. Okay, I performed at this level at this time for my Helen, or whatever the case may be, and then we train for a month. We try something a little different. We go a little heavier. We try and do a little bit more training in the lipolytic pathway or the glycolytic pathway. We increase our reps or we decrease our rest or whatever we try. And then we come back and we test ourselves against that previous time. Nutrition works the exact same way when you're trying to improve your performance. And here's the secret. Even when you're trying to retrain your metabolism for sustainable weight loss, it works the exact same way.
So go ahead.
No, you were going to say.
Well, I was just going to talk about the baseline, like how you're getting this baseline and where, I'm sure that's where the whole process starts. And you were probably getting there, but I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah. So that's what we do at MetPro. MetPro is short for metabolic profiling. When somebody comes to us, this is what we did with Rob. This is what we do with all of our athletes. We'll put them on a baseline meal plan. And so what happens is, most people, when I talk about this stuff, they'll think, oh yeah, I use MyFitnessPal. I know how many calories I'm eating. That's good. That's better than nothing, of course. That's a start, but that's like saying I'm heading east or I'm heading west. That'll give you a really, really rough outline of a direction. What we need is to get a lot more granular. What is your macronutrient ratio? And even your macros don't paint the complete story. I need to know, are you spreading that out over 3 meals? Are they balanced meals? Are you heavy on your proteins or carbs early in the day, back half of the day? Are you spreading it out over 5, 6, 7 meals? One of my pro athletes, I had waking up to his alarm at 2 a.m. to eat an 8th meal, if you can believe that. Now, that was an extreme scenario. That's not a typical case. But you have to know where the nutrition is coming from, and are you across the board? Are you getting consistent glycemic loads in your meals based on how you're pairing your macronutrients? And most people, when they hear me talk about this, their head is spinning and they're saying, look, Angelo, I don't have time to go get a PhD in all this,
Right.
But that's where you can really leverage really just some very, very simple technology that enable us to parse our metabolism. So when I start with a client, I put them on a very simple meal plan, and I build it with foods they like. They don't have to upend anything. Maybe their timing is a little adjusted. But basically, they're on a meal plan, and they ask me, well, what's special about this meal plan? And my answer is always the same. It's nothing. Nothing's special about it. What's special is that 3 days from now, when you come back to me, I will have known exactly how many calories you ate a day, what the glycemic load of each meal, how many times you ate, what the macronutrient load was, how much energy you expended, and all those metrics. Then when I have an output, you lost 2 pounds. You gained 2 pounds.
So
you maintained your weight. I have a baseline.
Right. So you're looking at like say a CrossFitter or like a high level athlete. How would you know? I mean, it's kind of tricky to know how many calories you're burning. I mean, really, like, there's intensity, there's duration, there's, a certain person is going to burn maybe a little hotter than other people. How do you determine what you're burning? Like, and maybe it's just a regular person who's just taking a walk, and then were they walking up hills? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of difference that could affect the calorie burn. I just wonder how you do it, especially if you're working with people, away from you that you're not seeing every day over the internet.
Tom,
or whatever.
You're right. That is a difficult number to know, and I'm glad you asked that. So this is a little bit of a deviation, a tangent, but it's one worth taking. So let's just talk about that for a moment. So first of all, for years, the technology, I would tell people, pay no attention to the number on the treadmill when you're running. It's telling you you're burning a number, and it's completely off. The numbers have improved when you're wearing your Aura, when you're wearing your Whoop, the Garmin. They have gotten better. Now, with that, there is a fundamental flaw that the technology will not be able to, in the foreseeable future, account for, and that is adaptive thermogenesis. So what the current research shows, and I've been shouting this from the rooftops for years. So I was the guy that worked with a number of, like, for example, the contestants that were on The Biggest Loser.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
A year after they came off the show, and they had broken metabolisms. Like, what's going on? How do I? And don't get me wrong, I don't want to bad talk the show. I know several of the coaches on it, and they were overall a force for good, but there was some issues. So these people would come off of these intense scenarios of being used to, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of exercise a day, eating relatively low caloric intake for their expenditure, and their metabolism had been altered. So it was around that time researchers did a lot more studies, and they really tapped into something that us metabolism nerds have known for a while, but we couldn't really put our finger on why. And that is, when they do the math, here's how much weight you lost, here's how we acclimate or we account for your lean body mass, fat mass, we would expect, based on this amount of weight loss, your metabolic rate would decrease this amount. Except it was decreasing more. The delta they now refer to in technical terms in research communities as adaptive thermogenesis. And it's very hard to put your finger on it because it's not one mechanic. It's everything from the, hormones like leptin and ghrelin to even neuropeptides, and how our insulin levels change and how our bodies produce and utilize, even on a cellular level, energy. And it's really death by 1,000 cuts. What happens is when you diet, when you reduce intake, your body acclimates to that in a multitude of ways across multiple bodily systems. Because of that, your efficiency goes up. And so these calculators that technology takes advantage of, that says you're this active, and here's the divisible by your heart rate and hours spent and weight and gender, etc., are a good starting point, but they cannot discern where your body is in that adaptive process. And so that's really the heart of what we get at MetPro, is discerning where your personal metabolic rate is on the spectrum of the process of acclimating and adapting to changes in composition, weight, and energy intake, and meeting you where you're at. So to answer your question, you can't get precise with your energy expenditure unless you're in an oxygen chamber, doubly labeled water, that sort of thing. For the average person on a practical, you can't get precise. You can get close, but you can get precise with your food intake, which is why I'm going to tell you a recommendation we make, which shocks people at first.
Okay.
You know what we tell them the first week?
What?
We tell them, if you're not currently exercising, don't start the first week. Now, trust me, that's my number one goal. I want to get people out there and moving. But what happens is I'll get, Johnny comes back to me and he goes, Angelo, this is great. I just started the meal plan you gave me. I lost 5 pounds this week. I'm like, Johnny, that's great, except I noticed you started running 4 miles a day. Are you accustomed to that? He goes, no. I said, I'm thrilled that you've lost 5 pounds. Now we have to do the baseline test over because unfortunately I didn't get the data that I needed. Now, if somebody's used to exercising, we don't tell them to stop. We tell them merely continue what your body is currently accustomed to for a few days. The only delta, the only change is the nutrition. So we can actually track that change to see how your body is adjusting to it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, I see it. And, we probably made about half the audience their eyes glaze over, and it's the reason that they don't want to go on a diet anyway, is because it's like, why does it have to be so complicated? So it doesn't have to be so complicated. It can be very, very easy. You can go see somebody like yourself and just do what you say, right? Like that's, I mean, that can be as easy as it is, or you can get more interested in it. Like I am interested in it. I like to know, okay, if I'm eating certain things, I know that if I'm eating certain things or not eating certain things, I sleep better. If I sleep better, my performance is better in the gym, the whole thing. And then I'll go on, some different, I'll try some different things for a little while, and I'll feel like, with like what you're talking about with the CrossFit, you're recording everything. And it's like, okay, well, I see that nothing changed except what I was eating, and I did better. Right. And, but then, I don't know, sometimes you get confused or whatever, or you decide you're going to try something different. I don't know. Maybe I was on the right track for a while, and then sometimes you get off the right track. And then a lot of people will get on some sort of a program. They'll do great, just like The Biggest Loser. We talked about The Biggest Loser. Sure. And then everybody knows that a lot of those people gained a ton of weight right back, right? And so that's a question, is like, why is that? Why does that happen? And why does it happen so often to people that they lose weight and then they gain it back and even put on even more? And
so we do a lot of research, and so what I try and do is our latest research paper, we examined about 52 different big research projects and papers. Some of them were meta-analysis, and we tried to explain basically through the lens of the thousands of high-performing clients that we've worked with, what these research studies are really indicating. And so what we have found is, here are the biggest influencers. You have your calories, your energy intake and out. Everybody knows that. That's not contested. That remains a huge influencer. Then you have your macronutrients, your carbohydrates. And it's interesting to really examine that debate between calorie control and carbohydrate control, which one comes out on top. And I won't get into the nuance of that because I think I have somewhere a little more important to go, but suffice to say the research is conclusive. They are both viable scientific approaches. And so the key is applying each of them to the degree appropriate in your circumstance. Then there's exercise. So some really good research has been done that has really exposed, unfortunately, the truth about the effort we have to put into our exercise to see immediate effects as far as a weight management tool. But in 88% of the meta-analysis, all the research that shows successful interventions, consistent, regular exercise was a part of it. Illustrating what we already know, coaches and athletes alike, we know exercise has to be part of ongoing weight maintenance. But then there's a fourth component, and this is the one, Tom, that gets missed, and this is the one that I spend the most time teaching. Periodization. Now, we all know that word, which is a sports training terminology, but it's also applied to nutrition. Periodization has to take place whether you're a grandma looking to lose 10 pounds to keep up with the grandkids, or whether you're an elite top 10 CrossFitter. There has to be some level of nutritional periodization, or there should be if you're bumping up against the plateau, and here's why. Your body will acclimate to your diet, period. If it can't, you die.
You die.
It's really as simple as that. You die. Let me explain that to you. So what happens if I were to take 1,000 calories out of your diet, Tom, would you lose a little weight?
Yeah,
At
sure.
least at first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would happen if you got on the scale tomorrow? What would you weigh tomorrow if you lost 2 pounds? I'm asking for your weight here now.
I weighed 182. If I lost 2 pounds, I'd weigh 182.
Right. Okay. So now, if you continued to lose 2 pounds a week for a year, how much
Right.
would you weigh?
You're going to be 100 pounds less. Yep, 104 pounds less. That's right.
Yes. So your body will find a way to acclimate to keep you alive. Now I'm going to ask you another question. I love doing this. I did this in a room full of doctors and neurosurgeons and specialists. And it was really fun seeing kind of this functional test. When the light bulb came on, this is how spiteful the metabolism really is. Would you die if we took 1,000 calories a day out of your diet?
No.
No. You might wish you were dead. You certainly would not thrive. But no, let's talk about realities. The sad realities, there are entire countries in the world today who exist probably on less than 1,000 calories a day, less than what you're eating. They do not thrive, but they will not expire. So that means your metabolism has to be able to acclimate and close that gap. Everyone has experienced that. Everyone. We've all gone on a diet, and the first week it's like, party, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm losing weight. And then by week 5, it's like, what's going on? That's the body acclimating. Now, here's the hard truth. It works in reverse, you just don't notice. It works in reverse. Let me explain that.
Okay.
Tom, you weigh 184 pounds. Am I doing that math right? Okay. What would happen? I know you train hard. What would happen if you changed nothing about your diet, except you added a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream every night before bed? And I use that because I know exactly how many calories a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream is.
I'd probably get to 200. Well,
Okay.
I'd probably, with that, I don't know if I'd hit 200, but I could probably get to 195.
There you go. So I have asked, literally, in seminars and lectures and workshops over the last 2 decades, I have asked hundreds of people this. And you are, you're 54, I think you said?
Yep.
You are the expert on your body. I'm an expert on metabolism, and I will confirm you're probably right. That sounds about right. You probably gained 10, 15 pounds. Now we have a mathematics problem. So in a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, there's 1,000 calories. So that's 7,000 calories a week. Do you remember how many calories is in a pound of body fat?
No. How many?
3,500.
3,500.
3,500. So that means that would be 2 pounds a week. Now's where we run into that math problem I was promising you. So 52 weeks in a year. Any chance your math is off, Tom, and instead of gaining about 10, 15 pounds over the course of the first year, you would gain 104 pounds?
It could be. It could be. I mean, there's a lot of factors in this, though. I mean, as you add calories, maybe you get a little extra energy. Maybe you want to work out a little bit more. Maybe you want to get a little bit more exercise because you actually have more calories to burn. So I guess that's where it gets a little funny. But if you changed absolutely nothing and ate 1,000 calories more a day, could you gain that much? I think a lot of people did that in COVID. I think you just explained COVID in a nutshell for a lot of people that 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds. Because nothing changed except more came in. No more went out, but more came in.
And that absolutely does happen. And some people who are, of course, less active, et cetera, would have a propensity and would certainly gain more, and they wouldn't be happy with it. But here's what I can promise you, Tom. You would not gain 104 pounds in 1 year. You might gain more than you were thinking, but you'd gain nowhere near 104. Why? For all those factors that you just mentioned, that's all true, but it's that metabolic adaptation. Just like if you cut 1,000 calories, you wouldn't die. If you added 1,000 calories, your metabolism would speed up. And so this isn't just theory, so we've tested this. So they've done research, and one of our more recent models, what we did was we kind of shined a light on a recent research piece that was done with just a small group of men in their early 20s. They were athletic, they were weightlifters, where they actually put them in, the whole, chamber and the doubly labeled water and, the whole 9 yards. And they took them through a cutting phase where they restricted their intake and measured the effect on their metabolism. And then they reversed it and they did what they call a refeeding phase, where they actually superimposed and overfed them. And sure enough, that metabolism trailed. And it wasn't like weeks behind. It was within hours, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours, they could start to see the shift that fast. And so supporting that, what they've actually found is they've biopsied and researched elite trained female elite endurance athletes. And what they have found is that the number one predictor of their metabolic rate is intake, even over composition.
Really?
Think about that. That's profound. And then to further back that, this was just fresh in my mind because I was just working on this research project. That's why I'm pulling this out of a hat. But to back that up, there was another paper where they tracked a elite female bodybuilder. And they tracked her metabolic rate. And what happened was at baseline, before she went through 2 contest preps, at baseline, her BMR was sitting around 1,400. At the end of 2 contest prep cycles, which took about 3-4 months, her BMR had dropped to about 1150.
So explain what a BMR is for people that don't know what that is.
Base metabolic rate, essentially, or RMR, resting metabolic rate, essentially vegging out on the couch, how much energy your body needs to sustain you without activity added on top of that. So when they tracked it and they found her RMR drop, that of course is what we would all expect. That's the way it works. She's cutting and dieting really hard. But in the process, she was also lifting like a machine. And she actually increased her lean muscle mass during that same time period.
Wow.
So despite the increases to lean muscle mass, her RMR, BMR still dropped.
Wow.
But post-competition, it recovered, and she was even able to recover and outpace her baseline. She got it up to close to 1,600 BMR, RMR, showing that there is hope.
Wow.
So does that prove that all the science about muscle mass speeds your metabolism is wrong? No, that's not what it's proving. What it's proving is that the body's survival mechanic will persist and even outpace it when the need arises. You still want to have muscle. See, that muscle mass and that training she did, it gave her the potential to speed her metabolic rate and outpace baseline. But in that state of deprivation where she was eating under 1,200 calories a day, even with the added muscle, the body is going to find a way to optimize, to become more efficient, to keep her alive. And that is even going to outpace the fact that she has more muscle, which is why tracking your intake, and it comes full circle back to what we do at MetPro, we use some technology to very simply track and baseline test as we go through. We know where someone's metabolic pace is, and we can predict with reasonable accuracy, hey, if we cut a little bit now, if we cut 10% here, you're likely to have a good outcome.
Wow.
And hey, we probably shouldn't cut any more right now. It looks like your metabolic rate is just in maintenance. What we need to do is take you through a revving cycle. So remember what we learned about Ben & Jerry's ice cream?
Right. Yep.
I'm going to say something that's technically accurate. Don't write hate mail. Ben & Jerry's ice cream speeds your metabolism.
Whoa.
Shocking, right?
So many people will be
Shocking.
happy about that.
Yeah, so many people are very happy about that. The experts are going to say, what is this guy crazy? No, but technically speaking, the increase in energy, your body will respond. Now, you're going to gain body fat. You're going to feel lethargic. It's going to hurt your performance. You're not going to like what you see on the scale. But technically speaking, your metabolic rate will be increased. Imagine if instead of doing it that way, we did it in a calculated fashion. So here's what I would do with you, Tom. This is what I did with Rob. This is what I did with all of my elite athletes. I would say, okay, Tom, here's what we're going to do next week. We're going to increase your intake. But it's not going to be some 20% overnight increase. I'm going to have you add a third a cup of brown rice, or a quarter cup of sweet potato, a half a cup of berries. We're going to do that for 72 hours, and then we're going to add again, small, right? And we're going to do that gradually, and I'm going to do that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then finally you're going to reach a threshold, Tom, where you're going to come back to me and go, whoa, Angelo, I gained a pound. I'm going to say, perfect. That's what I wanted. Now I know. I'm not guessing. This isn't theory. This is that just happened data. Now you're at your threshold. Now, Tom, go burn that pound off. But here's the catch. You cannot eat a bite less food. This is how we retrain your metabolism. This is how we force the issue and condition your metabolism. So now you go back and you do an extra 20 minutes of cardio a day for 4 or 5 days, and you come back to me huffing and puffing and whew, okay, Angelo, I burned that pound off. Because you can cardio 1 pound off.
Sure.
Anyone can. You can't cardio 100 pounds off. You can cardio 1 pound off. And then this is where I get all my evil nicknames. You come back to me and I say, great. Now I want you to eat another half cup of oatmeal, a half cup of this, half cup of that. Go gain that pound back. And I would force you, Tom, to increase and gain and lose that same pound 3 or 4 times over the course of, call it 5 to 9 weeks, just depending on what we were doing, until your metabolic rate was now conditioned, as if you'd been eating Ben and Jerry's ice cream that fast. Then what happens, Tom, when all at once I pull your carbs out and I drop your calories?
Then you drop the weight. Or drop the body fat, probably.
Incinerates off of you. It
Wow.
incinerates off of you, because weight loss, and here's the big secret, weight loss is not about eating right or wrong per se, healthy or unhealthy, although that all should be accounted for, absolutely. But weight loss, technically speaking, is about contrast. What your body is used to versus the contrast between what you change it to. And that's the missing component most people don't understand. Angelo, I'm doing everything the professionals say is quote unquote right. Yes, you are. But your body is used to right. We need to get it used to something different and then change it fast.
Yeah.
Pull the rug out from under it. Then we get adaptation. And this isn't anything new. This comes from coaching elite bodybuilders and doing contest prepping. But the same principles apply to performance nutrition, to endurance condition, to hunting and fishing and longevity and wellness and any aspect of performance. If you want to enhance the outcome, well, you can apply a little bit of science. There's a way to do it.
And so would you take that same approach to just a regular person that has stubborn weight, they've tried everything and it's just not coming off, and so that would be the same type of approach?
Absolutely.
So when you're going to take that approach, I wonder, do you have to really talk to somebody?
Water it down?
Yeah, you got to water it down, but you also, I just wonder, so many people are looking for the overnight solution, right? And there are plenty of ways that you can cut 2,000 calories out of your diet and you're going to lose quickly, but it's not going to sustain, and you're going to be on this yo-yo deal that everybody sees. And so your approach seems to be much longer approach before you're going to see this dramatic weight loss, right? The way that you just described it anyway, and maybe that's not fair. Maybe you should explain it a different way. Yeah,
I'll clarify that a little. So I was approaching it from the all too common standpoint of I'm at a plateau.
Right.
So technically speaking, about 85% of our clients see weight loss out of the gate in the first 72 hours.
Oh.
Now, what there are occasions where somebody comes to us eating, and it's ironic, I won't name names, but wasn't Rob, I had an elite level CrossFitter. This was the scenario. They were eating very healthy, boiled chicken, broccoli all day long, but they were so severely underfueling as far as macronutrients. As soon as they got that fixed, boy, it was just night and day difference. But most people coming with a weight loss goal, which is the majority of people that reach out to us, will find that even on a baseline testing meal plan, because of the structure, because of the lifestyle adjustments, and because we're not eating sugar and a bunch of garbage, while we're going through baseline testing, right out of the gate, weight drops off. So a very common scenario, I'm just going to use a guy, 6 feet tall, he weighs 220, and he wants to weigh 280. Very common scenario. So often what we'll do is we'll baseline test. After baseline testing, I will know where his metabolic rate is, and I will put him on a rough progression with a pretty good estimate of how much weight he's going to lose in his first cycle.
So wait, maybe you said that wrong. You said 220, he wants to weigh 180. I thought we were talking about football players or bodybuilders, but you're saying maybe 280, he wants to be 220. He wants to lose 60 pounds. Right.
There.
Okay.
We'll use that. Okay. There you go.
Well, you just said it backwards, so I didn't want anybody to be confused.
280, he wants to be 220.
Okay.
So in that scenario, what he's going to do, and it works either way, but what he's going to do is I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, based on what's triggering weight loss. So all our meal plans, we have about 600 meal plans in our CRM. So there is no one diet or one approach. It's a matter of having the right tool for the right job. But they're each in categories. So we have category 1 diet, category 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to a 10. Rob Orlando talked about in one of his videos with us being on a phase 10. So what that was referencing is approximate intake level. There's a lot of nuance that goes into that. I'm looking at what intake threshold triggers weight loss, and based on that, I can tell an individual, you know what? We're probably going to be able to get 20 or 30 pounds off before your metabolism catches up and you hit that plateau. Or, you know what? Your body's stubborn. Your metabolic rate's running slow. I'm going to be able to get 8 to 10 pounds off of you, and then we're going to have to do a up-regulating cycle. You see, so it all depends on where the person comes in at. But a very common scenario is they start at, say, 280. Okay, now they're 250, 245. But they're getting to the point where there's not a whole lot more to cut. So we're going to take a pause there, even though they want to be 220. We're not just going to push and barrel ahead and ignore metabolic responses. Now we spend 5, 8, 6, 5, 8, 10 weeks regulating their metabolic rate up, and it's like rebooting their metabolism.
Wow.
Now we can start that process and get down to, okay, now we're going to push for 220. And oh, by the way, if somebody wants to weigh 220, I'm going to diet you down to 216. Can you imagine why I might need to do that?
I don't know. Tell me.
So statistically, it's most likely when you hit your low weight in a dieting process, you're going to be on the lower end of your intake spectrum. Mm-hmm. That's no way to live, Tom. That's not what I'm about.
Right.
I want people to live. I don't want to live this life without pasta and meatballs every once in a while. My father would roll over in the grave and smack me. You got to have a good sauce.
Right.
We want someone to be able to actually eat, live within reason. You're not going to have pizza and beer every night either.
Right.
So that means when they get to 216, they're probably on a more sharp, a little more spicy cutting cycle.
Right.
I want to make them gradually gain through that up adjusting process I described to you up to their maintenance weight. So when they get there, their body's used to eating so much more. Now we own it. Mm-hmm. I have this issue a lot of times, clients, male and female. This will happen a lot to some females who, but either, it doesn't matter, will come to me and say, hey, Angelo, I hit the goal weight. And I said, no, you didn't. Like, yeah. No, I weighed it on the scale today. So you don't own that weight. What did you eat yesterday? Oh, well, my stomach was upset, so I hardly ate anything. Yeah, no, you don't weigh that number. The number on the scale is a reflection of your metabolism. When your metabolism's blazing and you weigh a certain number on the scale, meaning if you're eating a normal, sustainable amount of food each day and you weigh that number on the scale, then you weigh that number. If your environment is such that you didn't eat, any number on the scale is very temporary.
Right.
And so that's what we're looking at. And here's a couple interesting stats for you and maybe for our listeners who are wondering. We have found, running algorithms and data crunching from a whole bunch of different angles, really passionate about some of the really neat technology and AI stuff that's coming out these days. I'm interested to see how in time it can enhance performance in sport and nutrition. But the algorithms that we've been running and have refined over the years indicate that the best reflection of metabolic pace, I need to take actually a 9-day snapshot. So somebody asks, well, where's my metabolism? I'm actually going to look all the way back at 9 days of data. And I'll even look further than that. I'll look at months for history. But in the moment, 9 days of data, that's the tail.
Now the data that you're going to look at is the amount of calories and what those were comprised of, and then how that affected their weight. That's
Correct.
What you're looking at, those two things?
Weight, energy, and performance, Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how do you measure energy? Just by feel?
That's the subjective portion. Okay. The nice thing is now with some of our sleep trackers and things like that, we can actually get a little bit more objective data points. But at this point, I use through our app, I have our clients basically putting in a workout score. And so they give me a subjective, personal appraisal of here's how my performance was today. And that's what we want to see going up and going down. And this data tracking takes about 10 seconds. That's the key. I've been a personal coach, passionate about personal transformations for 21 years now. And I have learned the secret to consistent transformations with my clients. And it's not what you think. The secret is time management. That's what I have learned. So if I ask my clients to do something that is overly cumbersome, we won't do it. We won't do it. It has to be efficient. It has to be quick. So we have developed our technology with that in mind. So the way our platform works, and I'll give some tips for how you could do this just at home, even if you're not on our platform. If you're just at home, you can do apply the same broad principles. But the way our platform works is one of our coaches working very closely with you will have assigned a very polished, a very specific meal plan. But all it does is it dictates at your meal time how much should be coming from protein, from complex carbs, from fibrous carbs, if you're assigned fruit carbs, from fruit carbs, how much from fats, etc. So it breaks it down. It's not just totals. It's getting a lot more granular than that. But then that's where the technology is leveraged. You don't have to invent and go to the grocery store and, get out your spectacles and calculator. You just pick from the food lists the foods you're going to eat, and it will just run the calculations for you and say, oh, okay, well, you're going to have, if you're going to have lean steak, you're going to have this many ounces, and then it's going to move the bar and say that gets you to this point and that point in your protein, carbs, fats, and it will make recommendations. Here's how you can hit that. So it takes the guesswork out of it. As a user, what you'll do is simply check off whether or not you adhered to that meal.
Right.
You either adhered to it or you didn't. If you didn't, what the algorithm is going to do is it's going to weight that data less. It's going to say, okay, today Johnny weighed 2 pounds more or 2 pounds less, but when looking back at the data in the last 48 hours, he only had a 65% adherence to his meal plan. So we're not going to ignore the data, but we're going to put a lot less stock in it. So you see how we can get some real accurate data that way. And then when somebody's like, hey, for 72 hours, I nailed my meal plan. Now the algorithm's going to say heavily weight this data as quality data. And then, of course, your coach is going to be looking at it and can read between the lines going, oh, yeah, he was out of town hunting for the weekend or camping or this, that, or the other.
How often are our clients talking to the coaches?
It's an ongoing day in and day out process.
Is that like email and text, or is it full phone calls?
We do a lot of texting for efficiency, in and out questions back and forth, but I like my clients to actually talk with us and have at least a good heart-to-heart once a week, maybe twice a week. But between those conversations, you can expect a lot of text messaging back and forth, depending on who you are, a lot of jive, a lot of jabs, a lot of fun.
Right.
Now, we like to have fun with our clients.
When I looked at your website doing a little preparation for this, I noticed that, it said you had 3 categories. You were like weight loss, performance, energy increase, and build muscle, right? So a lot of people are hard gainers. They have a hard time putting on muscle. So that's somebody that you're talking to. But for me personally, I'm 54, and if you know about the CrossFit competitions, you basically do the same. There's 14 to 17-year-olds, and they're scaled a little bit, and then there's 18. That's when you turn into the regular elite male, and then go the same weights and same movements apply all the way until you're 54. Then when you're 55, the weights drop significantly.
Yep, you are
significantly. So I'm playing the system right here. So I'm 54, and by the games next year, I'll be 55. I'll be at the bottom of the age group, and the weights have dropped. After all of these years, I've been doing CrossFit since 2008. After all of these years, this is my absolute best chance to do my very best, right? I'll be at the bottom of the age group with all new weights, some scaled movements, and so I'm really paying very, very close attention to it, and that's why I was really, really interested in talking to you about this. Is like I am trying to dial in everything that I possibly can this year, and doing it. I mean, I weigh and measure anyway, but I'm talking about like I'm in for whatever. I will do whatever. And so,
Tom, this is my passion. Let's do this, buddy.
That sounds great. But so tell me about the process, and especially about energy, increases in energy, because I get tired a lot of times, and I do believe that a lot of that is nutrient timing. Like I'm eating too much in certain times of the day and not enough in other times of the day. And I don't know, like when I was doing the zone a long time ago, I was doing it. That's when I felt the best I've ever felt. And I didn't have a tracker, and I didn't have anything. I was doing it with a pencil and a piece of paper, and just weighing and measuring. And honestly, I felt really great. That was a long time ago. But I'm looking for more energy and better performance. And also, I feel like I have a body weight that I believe is my best competitive weight, which is about 10 pounds lighter than I am right now. And yeah. So I feel like I could strip off a little fat, but I don't want to do that too early. I would want, like, it's all about peaking, like just like you would work with Aaron Rodgers or whatever. And he's like, well, there's no reason for me to get in unbelievable shape in the spring. Like I need to be, I need to peak at this certain time. But I just wonder what the process looks like for somebody like myself.
Let's take you through it. Okay, so you're 54 now. Having done quite a bit of work with some of the elite CrossFitters, there is quite a bit. A lot of people don't realize CrossFit is not just a physical sport. It is very much a psychological and mental sport. Going in and deciding, am I going to train and bet that there's going to be more endurance-based high rep, or is it going to be this year they're going to program real heavy and I need to go in a few pounds heavier and stronger, and so you're playing a little bit of that game. But Tom, because of that threshold where you're going from 54 to 55 and the weights are going to drop, I'm going to go out just seeing, what you look like. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you've probably got the strength piece dialed, and you're going to really excel by having your strength to weight ratio just optimized. So that's just my shooting from the hip gut feeling for you right out of the gate. So how do we get you there without sacrificing an ounce of performance and recovery? And I'm going to tell you a hard truth, and for some reason nutritionists, sports nutritionists don't like to utter these words, but I don't know why we're afraid of it. It's the truth. Doesn't matter how good you eat. When you're dieting down, even if you're eating incredibly healthy, you're going to sacrifice performance.
Sure.
That has to be timed properly. So what we want to do is we need to evaluate what your intake is like. So we can do that right here, right now, or we can do that offline.
I track my stuff. I mean, I track generally. I track, and I have been for the last year. And I'm on a program that has it'll reshuffle when you hit a little plateau. And I made my weight loss goals, and I feel great. But I think I could feel better, and I think I could perform better.
So
I probably looked as good as I ever did, as far as I looked like I was ready to go in a bodybuilding competition, but that didn't mean that I necessarily felt the best, and I wasn't necessarily performing the best.
Right.
So that's super important. Like, nobody cares what you look like. You wanna win. And like, if you look at the past CrossFit champions, like Rich Froning and Matt Frazier, neither one of those guys were the leanest of the athletes. Now, they could have been, but I think that they both knew where the sweet spot was to where they were going to have the right body weight to win, and to win over a 5-day competition. And I believe that both of those guys were able to win over and over and over again. And if you look at them, obviously incredible physiques. But if you look at some of the other guys, they got veins going through their abs and everything, and they did not. They look better, but they didn't win, And those guys knew. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why they won over and over and over again, is they knew what the right body composition was.
And there is, we have to acknowledge, there is a delta for body type, someone who's more mesomorphic, endomorphic versus someone who's more ectomorphic may actually be on the leaner side and still could be bringing their best than someone who's a little mesomorphic. But what you just said, Tom, there is so much truth in that. Back in 2017, I was working with a young man who he came in top 10. He qualified top 10, and he had qualified top 10 the year before. And he was, I won't name names, but he was poised to. He wasn't going to take first place, top 5, but he was poised to compete for about 5th, 6th place. And and at the end of the day, he wanted to look like a Calvin Klein model slightly more than he wanted his recovery to be just a little bit better. And, he came in about 22nd, 23rd, and it just broke my heart because of exactly what you were saying he actually needed in those reserves. And sometimes it takes a little life experience and maturity to recognize that. But what you're saying is absolutely spot on. So with your intake, what we need to do, Tom, is decipher at what point you have the metabolic leverage to endure a cutting cycle without it being too costly. So do you know currently about your caloric intake and your macros?
About 2,400 calories.
Okay. So we're too low. Not too low for today. That's the right amount for you today because that's what your body's accustomed to. But I guarantee you I can get you over 3,000 without body fat gain. And what that's going to do is that's going to get us that delta. Now, the way we're going to do that, you've heard the debates, well, you don't eat when you're not hungry. It's better to eat less often, and all the research on benefits, pros and cons of intermittent fasting. And then you have the bodybuilding community that's like, nope, you eat every 2 hours, and this is how you...
Yeah, that's why it's so confusing. because you're hearing these conflicting, and like for the regular person that's just trying to lose some weight, they hear these conflicting, they're almost polar opposites from people that are obviously, they know what they're talking about. This guy's a bodybuilding champion. This guy's a football player. This guy's, and it's no wonder that it's so hard for people to have success, because you don't know who to listen to.
Precisely. And it's not because all of them are wrong and one guy has it figured out. That's not it. Mm-hmm. All of these approaches are viable. They're not optimized for you. So this age-old debate, carbs or calories, which do you cut? The answer is whichever you personally have the most leverage with. Mm-hmm. So for you right now, calorie restriction, that's not an option for us. 2,400 calories for you. Now, for somebody less active than you, yeah, we could, they survive down at 800 to 1,800, no problem. Right. But for you, the lever that we have remaining at this point would be macronutrients. Now, if I got you up to about 2,900 calories a day, then I would have both levers. You see, so it's not a one or the other. And that's what I'm passionate about, Tom, is helping people understand the science. So for example, I'll try and clear up right now. What's better, small frequent meals or just listening to your body, eating when you're hungry? Well, when you eat only when you're hungry, that's a lifestyle and a behavioral tactic that will likely result in less overconsumption. Therefore, it is a force for good. Mm-hmm. But in the context of someone like yourself, Tom, there's no place for that. We want to train your metabolism to be conditioned to eating this at 2:30 every day, so that way it anticipates it and it optimizes around it. When we have you eating small meals frequently, you won't actually lose more weight in a cutting cycle. The research is out. They've done it with small meals frequently. They've done it with just 2 big meals. And the research is conclusive. You lose about the same based on your calorie restriction, your carbohydrate restriction. But what they don't explain is on your way up. If I need to add 100 grams of carbs to your diet, if I try and add that into your diet and spread it just between 1 or 2 meals, you're going to gain some body fat.
Right.
But if I can spread it out over 6 or 7 meals, piece of cake. Huh. You see, and so, but not everyone is trying to add 100 grams of carbs and spread it out. You see, so it's all a matter of understanding what we're trying to do and the timing thereof. That's how we get down to the nitty gritty and optimize. So for you, how many meals a day are you eating right now?
3 meals a day.
So right out of the gate, I'm gonna encourage you, not because it's holding you back today, but because it's going to raise the roof on your potential tomorrow. I want to see you go to a minimum of 5, and if I can twist your arm, 6. It is a time commitment thing, I understand. But if you can go to 6, what it's going to do is it's going to give you the leverage to increase your intake without body fat gain. And then we could go back to 3 during a cutting phase if we so elected, but likely you're going to feel so good. It's just going to give us so much leverage for a cut. That's how you're going to get that 10 pounds down and still enhance your performance and recovery.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, and so when you're doing this, do you look at blood work ever? Do you just look at the metrics that we've already talked about, weight and calories in and workouts and everything, and see if you're on your way, and then subjective. Are you feeling good? Do you feel great? Or do you feel terrible? Are you sleepy? I don't know.
For the average person, they want to know, am I losing weight? And am I doing it in a sustainable way? That's the big metrics for a lot of people. But for someone who's an elite athlete like yourself, those are all the metrics, and I want every data point you can get your hands on. Now, with that said, it is not a requirement that you get blood work, but especially for my elite athletes, I'm always going to encourage them to do so. So this is a totally different tangent, but with blood work, it is so useful, but it's just a pet peeve of mine. It's used in marketing in a way that's misleading, and that just frustrates me. There is no blood test you're going to take which is going to tell you what you need to eat to gain or lose weight. That's going to parse
you sure do hear that a lot. Explain that. So I think maybe my wife is doing this right now. She's submitted some blood work to somebody that, you know, and this is going to be the be all end all, and it's going to tell you what your ancestors used to do, and you hear all this all the time. So tell me why that wouldn't work, or why you feel like there's no blood test that would tell you what you should eat.
Those things are fabulous metrics and useful metrics. They just overpromise when it comes to, for example, weight loss. I can tell you what the blood work's going to say. It says it's going to say that your body is sensitive to carbohydrates, and when you eat too much carbohydrates, you gain weight, because that's how every human body works. Your blood work is going to, however, give you some unique foods that you may have sensitivities to. One of the most valuable pieces of data that we can get from blood work is inflammation markers. And these are all pieces that fit into the wellness protocol. But what it cannot tell you, ask the blood work to tell you, how many calories am I eating? It can't look at that. What we have to do is we have to actually test it. We have to put you on 2,000 calories. And I don't care what your blood work says, you're either going to lose weight or you're not going to lose weight. And that's truth. So we have to work within those confines. It can't tell us how much. It can tell you what your body may have more digestive sensitivities to. It can tell you about your hormones, your inflammation markers, and all of those things. But some of the programs out there are marketed. They want you to invest the money. They're going to basically put you on the same canned, reduce your carbohydrates, reduce anti-inflammatory foods. I can tell you for free to eat less sugar, eat less fried foods, to eat more vegetables, moderate fruits. These are all the things we already know. Now, where blood work becomes even more critical is when there is a deficiency. The value of a supplement, the value of micronutrients becomes exponential to the person who may be deficient in something. So what you get is you'll get a supplement on the market, and the same psychology with diet gurus and fitness gurus. They're not saying things that are wrong. You'll read this, well, I took vitamin D in this quantity, and I could hardly get out of bed, and now I'm hitting PRs and this, that, and the other. Vitamin D is great. I recommend it for all my clients. I love vitamin D, but here's the truth. Is it going to make you feel that way? If you were deficient in it, it will. Yeah. If you weren't deficient in it, it's going to be an optimization. It's not going to be the end-all, be-all, and that's why you get conflicting recommendations. This is the end-all, be-all. Well, for you, that was what you were deficient in. The blood work can tell you things like that, but it can't tell you now is a good time metabolically to cut. Now is a good time metabolically to increase your intake and rev. Now is a good time metabolically to maintain. The blood work can't give you those indications. So it's just a matter of understanding what is.
Yeah. So you just have to tinker with it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is that you have to, every person's different. I mean, what I'm hearing, and maybe you don't agree, but I think this is what you're saying. Every person's different. You basically need to tinker with it a little bit, and then you see how you respond to certain changes, and then you double down on those changes, or you abandon them if they're not working, right? And that's where I think a lot of people get frustrated or overwhelmed or disappointed with a diet where they start to lose a little bit of weight, they stop losing weight, and they don't tinker with it, they just stop and go back to what they were doing before, and maybe the weight goes back up or whatever. I don't know why it happens for so many people so often, but you do see that yo-yo kind of thing. You lose weight, then you gain weight, but it's like I think they just don't have a real program like what you're providing, a real program and someone there to reassure you. Yeah, look, you've hit a plateau, and you're probably going to stay here for a little bit, but the plan is that we're going to get you down a little further, so just stick with it. And it's that at those plateaus, I think, is where people are like, I knew it, and they go right back to where they were. And
abandoned ship.
Yeah, exactly. But they were, it's like you never know how close you were to success. Like if they had just stuck with it another few days or weeks, they might have, seen the scale continue to go down. But a lot of people just abandon right there because they don't know, right? And they think, oh, well, maybe it's keto, that's what I need to do, or maybe it's paleo, I need to do that, or this other person says this is the way to do it, and so then they shift over to something else, and who knows what's happening? Maybe it's effective, it will be for some people, but not, for other people it won't be, and then they're just all over the place, But your thing sounds good. I do want to talk to you more about it because we probably are going to run out of time on this podcast. But I'm serious about wanting to really dial it in this year. And what you're saying makes a tremendous amount of sense to me, especially getting more calories as fuel, because I really do feel like I run out of fuel in the day, but eating more is only putting more body fat on. And I don't want that. So you're just living in this place where you're just kind of in malaise of not feeling your best.
Malaise, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Is like you don't feel your best, but eating more is only the scale goes up, and you're like, well, I need to be down there. But I mean, I know I can make it on 1,800 calories. I at one point in this cut, I was at 1,800 calories, and I got down, and then I got to where I needed to be, and got comfortable, and then then it started to creep back up again. And I know that I'm not at my prime competitive weight, but it's also not the prime competitive season, right?
Sure.
So I'm willing to be wherever I need to be to peak at a certain place, and I think that. That's what I really need help with, is like looking out far in the future and saying, okay, well, we want you to feel your very best during all this training, and then we're going to get you down to where you're going to be peaking at the beginning of the competitive season, and then be able to hold on to that all the way through, what is now, it would be through the summer. That would be the time.
Well, Tom, what we're gonna do, if it's all right, hang on when we're done here for a moment, and I'm gonna get you set up, to work with us for a month. We'll do a comp session for you, and this will be a blast.
Oh, that'd be great.
Represent the exact demo that just lights us up. This is what we're so nerdy when it comes to this.
Well,
stuff,
it's really when you're talking about testimonials and things like that. When I saw somebody, I mean, I know Rob Orlando, and I know that he is a person that for a long time has paid very close attention to his nutrition, and he's trying to do the best. And then I see that he starts to work with you, and he has really great experience, and he feels like he's recovering better, and as he's getting older, he's recovering better. He's able to work hard. I know the guy. I know how he works out. He's an animal, right? So those testimonials that you have on your website, I mean, they really make a big difference, because if somebody knows somebody like that, and they know what is going into it, I mean, that's like really polishing the apple, to be able to take an Aaron Rodgers and take whatever he's currently doing and make him way better, or take a Rob Orlando or any of your elite athletes, and then take what they're doing, tweak it a little bit, and make them really get their ultimate performance. And if you can do that, I mean, what that tells me is if you can do that for somebody like that, you can certainly, there's so much more room for improvement. Because when you're talking about Aaron Rodgers or Rob Orlando or somebody like that, you're only going to improve their performance tiny degrees, right? They're already the best in the world, right? And so if you can get him to improve 1%, that's massive. But for the regular guy that hasn't exercised in 2 years and just gained a little weight, there's 50% that you can work on there. I mean, it's like there's so much more leeway. And so if you can do that and just polish it up for somebody, it really speaks highly of whatever you're doing. I'm looking forward to checking it out. We can do a follow up and see how it's going if you want.
Yes, thank you, Tom. You and I would just like to say that I learn from every one of these athletes. You've been very honoring to me to say that. That is very, very kind of you. I'm just fortunate to have been able to work with, some athletes with this kind of work ethic, and it's been a lot of fun. We're gonna have some fun together.
Okay,
I'm looking
cool. Well, tell everybody how they can learn more about what you do, or become a client, or go to your website, social media, whatever you have.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think our team, what they did was they actually built a link for your audience. So metpro.co/Roland.
Okay.
And if you go there, it'll just basically be a front of the line to actually talk to one of our consultants. You're not gonna, get put on the phone with a robot. You're gonna talk with Steve or Will, and they are excellent. They have done this for years. They are professionals, and even if this doesn't end up being the right fit for you, come ask them your questions. They're going to ask you some questions to get to know you, your history. Most people are accustomed to, even if it says it's not a one-size-fits-all, really it's a one-size-fits-most. That will not be your experience with us. We're gonna get to know you. We need to know where your entry point is, what your fitness and wellness history is, your training history, if there is one, or if you're just getting started, how you currently eat, specifics of what your goals are. Goal setting session with us might surprise you a little bit. It's going to be about what we're not going to focus on early on, because we need to really be hyper focused on moving 1 or 2 dials aggressively. But talk with one of our consultants. We'd love to get to know you and hear from you. You have a great audience here, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
I do. They're really incredible people here. It's been a blast. So if they call or visit the website or whatever, go to this link. It's a free consultation or free first thing, just to kind of get to know you and see if it's a good fit.
Consultation is 100% free.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Well,
Tom.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and see what happens, and we'll do a follow up. And after I get started and work with Angelo for a month, we'll see how it's going. And if you're interested, I know there's a lot of people out there that are interested, not just on the Physical Fridays, but there's a lot of people out there that put on a few in COVID and are having a hard time taking it off. I mean that's par for the course. So if it's you, this might be a great way to address that. But anyway, all right, I'm going to talk to you a little bit after this, and we'll be back with another awesome guest, just like Angelo, next week. So if you have guest suggestions or show suggestions, you can text me at 305-930-7346. That's the text number, and I'll look forward to hearing from you. All right, that's it for today. Thanks, Angelo.
Thank you.